Okay, I think it is officially that time, so we will begin. And I'm very excited and happy to be here with all of you. I've wanted to do this class for a very long time. And the reason is that this class will give you instructions on how to follow a diet that can completely change your life. That I will give you the rules this evening on how your body is made and what you need to put in your body so that you can keep it healthy. All human beings want to be happy and want to be healthy. But if we suffer from poor health, it's very difficult to be happy if we suffer from poor health. And there are some very simple rules that we can follow that can give us good health so that we can lead a life of perfect happiness. I'm normally used to speaking simply from inspiration, but you'll have to bear with me this evening that I have a lot of notes and I'll be going back and forth to those notes. You don't need to take notes this evening. We will post this video on Ananda Kolkata's YouTube channel so you can refer to it. And everyone here has registered and paid for this course, and we thank you for that. And for that, we're going to give you the notes. I spent a lot of time. It's not even the many hours I spent putting these notes together. It's the many years I've spent living what I'm going to give you right now. And so it's a very special treat, I feel, that I'm giving you with these notes. And I ask that you study them and take them seriously. But the point of all of that is that you don't have to worry about taking notes this evening. You can simply sit back, relax, and absorb as much as you can. But you'll be able to access the video again later, and we'll share the notes with you. And I do want you to study those. So I am going to start looking at notes. And as I do that, I also very much want to thank Ananda Kolkata, that I do take a large responsibility for the work there, but also that responsibility is shared by a great leadership team there and many wonderful souls who worked to put this program together and worked to put many programs together. So I just wanted to thank the team and everyone who's worked on organizing this program this evening, and hopefully we will be able to do many programs for you from Kolkata and share these great teachings. So speaking of the teachings, these are taken from Paramhansa Yogananda's teachings. I've designed this class that I won't talk as much as possible for me about spirituality, but these notes and these understandings, they came from someone who was very wise and knew how to live life. That there can be so much confusion on the topic of diet because this person with a degree from this university says this, and this person with a degree from this university says that, and we just don't know what to believe, and so we end up just saying, forget it all, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. And we don't know what the actual rules are. But I believe that Paramhansa Yogananda was very wise, that he knew what he was talking about, and that he gave us these rules. So I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving you things that are just my opinion or something that I feel is right. And also the notes that we'll be sharing with you, I've documented everything where I wrote it down, where it came from, so that you can trace it back. And I feel that's very important in today's day and age, when people post anything and everything all over the internet, and you don't know what to believe is true. These you can verify, these notes, and know exactly where they came from and study them more deeply. Many of the quotes that we'll be discussing this evening in the notes came from the Precepta lessons. And Paramhansa Yogananda did not write these himself, but he had people help him, and they would take dictation, and they compiled these lessons. He very much was aware of what was in these lessons, and he says in his own talks, please study the original Precepta lessons. So when you go back, if you want to do more research, I'll leave it to you to go and find the original Precepta lessons. But I would recommend any of them that are before 1952, when he left his body. They've been edited and edited since then. Nothing wrong with that. We live in a world where it's constantly changing, and those people doing that are doing a great job. but I would recommend, if you search for more on this, searching for those lessons that are before he left his body. We put a quote in the advertising: most diseases can be cured by judicious fasting under the guidance of a specialist. And that's a huge statement. Most diseases can be cured. Of course, right now we all know we're in the time of COVID, and unfortunately people are dying. And you take a quote like this and you wonder, can a simple orange juice fast cure COVID or cure some very difficult diseases like AIDS or cancer? And so I promise you, I'll answer that question at the end of the course. It's a very important question. So I think that's about it for the introduction. And so we're going to go on to the first part of this, which is if we want to keep our body in an alkaline state. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. I forgot one thing for the introduction, and that is I will answer questions at the end of this webinar. We have 2 hours together. So feel free all throughout the time of this evening to write in your questions. I've asked the tech team to see if we can record these as well, so that even if I don't get a chance to answer them all at the end, that we'll be able to get back to you. We'll do our best, and we're here to help you. You know why I wanted to do this class for so long. I want everyone to be happy. That I really want to help everyone. And this is a very simple way that it's helped me so much of understanding how the human body works and how I can simply modify my diet and be healthy almost all of the time. And because I want to help people, this seems like a pretty good starting place. So let's go ahead, let's jump right into this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll do this several times this evening. And what I'm going to be sharing is the handout of the notes that we'll share with you at the end of this. So let's click a few buttons here. And you now, I hope, are seeing my screen, and you can see where it says alkaline and acidic. And I have no way of checking that, but I'm just going to pray that it's working. Yeah, I think it is. Okay. So we went over the introduction. There you see alkaline and acidic. I'm going to read what I've highlighted yellow for you there. The normal medium in which the body performs its functions is alkaline. When, as a result of improper diet, overwork, lack of rest, lack of fresh air, and so forth, the body becomes acid, we are ill. And again, I highlighted there, alkalinity means health and immunity to disease. And I'll scroll down a little bit, then I'll stop sharing the screen. But basically, the way that we're going to make our body alkaline, I'll go down here to this other highlight right here, is by eating 80% of alkaline forming foods and 20% of acid forming foods. And so that becomes, the question becomes then, what's alkaline and what's acidic? That if I need to, hold on one second here, let's see if I can operate this. That's the button I'm looking for. Okay. The question becomes, what's alkaline? What is acidic? And what I just read to you there says that we need to be eating things that are 80% of our diet should be alkaline things. And, you know, if you don't really take much away from this class, I hope you take a lot away from it. But it is pretty simple. You already know it. The doctors all agree on it. We need to eat more fruits and we need to eat more vegetables. And these are the things that keep the body in an alkaline state. The things that put the body in a acidic state are the heavy proteins, and I'm talking about meat here specifically. And then the other things that put the body into an acid state are carbons or carbohydrates. And again, there's all different classes of carbohydrates. There's all different classes of proteins. We're going to go deeply into those this evening. But you know, you can feel this actually. And it's important for you to study this. And I only just showed you briefly those notes, but again, I want you to go and study what I've given you here on this topic of alkaline and acidity. But by your own understanding that if you decide for a day just to eat apples or something for one day, that's not going to hurt you. In fact, it will really help you. It's like a fast of just one particular fruit's a wonderful thing. We'll get into that more at the end of today's class. But apples, of course, being a fruit, would keep your body alkaline, and you'll feel that you feel lighter. That I mean, maybe most people can't feel what's going on in their bloodstream, but we can feel when we wake up in the morning, and sometimes we just feel heavy. Even sometimes if we eat big, heavy lunch, we just feel like taking a nap afterwards. But if we eat a light meal, then we still feel light, and it's easier to do our duties. And as you pay attention and you study these rules and then experiment on yourself, you'll see that you just feel healthier, you feel lighter, if you keep your body more in an alkaline state. Another important, very important thing to understand in keeping the body in an alkaline state is the citrus fruits. Fruits like lemons, oranges, grapefruits. We would think, well, they're acidic. When we taste it, it tastes like acid, and so it must be acidic. But it's a very interesting thing, and it's in those notes, you can study it, that when those citrus fruits burn, and that means inside our body when they interact with the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and when they then oxidize through the process that happens in digestion and when it goes into our bloodstream, when they oxidize, they actually become highly, highly alkaline. And one of the things that you can do to keep your body really alkaline, or if it's gone really acidic, is to go on an orange juice fast. We'll go into the 9-day diet later, and this is one of the reasons that it works so well, is it introduces a huge amount of citrus fruit into our system, and our body becomes highly, highly alkaline. So it kind of sounds like it might not make sense that the citrus fruits that are an acid are actually alkaline, but it's true, and it's an important thing to understand. Here's another thing that I'm just going to read out of the notes. The use of plenty of milk, vegetables, and fruits will keep the diet balanced for the normal individual. However, it is well to note what is meant by plenty, or this 80%, for it requires the alkaline surplus from 1 quart of milk, 4 or 5 vegetables, and 2 or 3 fruits to balance the acid surplus from 1 egg, 1 dish of cereal, 1 portion of meat, and 2 or 3 slices of bread. That was a little confusing probably for you to absorb all in one thing here, but again, it's in the notes and you can study that. And again, remember that 80%, 20%, Paramhansa Yogananda never said whether that's by volume or whether it's by kgs. And I don't like to get too into this, and meaning that I'm measuring with a scale that I ate, this many cucumbers, so now I can eat 1 egg or whatever. I try to really just be light and happy in all of this, that it's very easy to get fanatical about all of this. I'll tell you why it's easy to get fanatical about all of this, is because it works. When you start really understanding the rules behind all of this, and then how you can make yourself feel healthy, even if you have a cold. I've experimented with this, where I go on a 3-day orange juice fast, or I go on a 1-day apple diet, and bam, the cold's gone the next day. And of course you could argue maybe it was going to go anyways, but I've had colds that last and last, and I don't do anything with moderating my diet. I just saw a note there. Am I going to share the notes? Absolutely. At the end of this, you've registered. We're going to give you, for registering, the notes. And I spent a lot of time on these notes, and I urge you to study them. So right now, just sit back, relax. I know I'm going fast. I have a lot of material to cover in these 2 hours, but this video will be posted on Ananda Kolkata's YouTube channel, so you can watch it again. You'll have the notes, and you can study, and you'll be able to go into this as deep as possible. But just to reiterate, because then we need to move on, on the alkaline and acidity, that we're trying to keep our body in an alkaline state. In order to keep it in an alkaline state, eat more fruits, eat more vegetables. That means eat less carbohydrates, which is all bread, starches, pastas, rice, potatoes. We're going to get into that also. And eat less meat. We'll get into is eating meat right at all. We'll get into that. And eat a moderate amount of protein. And we all need protein. We're going to get into that. So let's move on. We'll go on to the 16 elements. And this is science that we're teaching you here. This isn't hocus pocus, spirituality, strange stuff. It's just pure science. And I'm having to read from my notes here a little bit. But so these 16 elements is what your body's made out of. Your body's actually made out of more than 16 elements. But, you know, there's a quote I wanted to read on that. Let's see. That it was made out of more than 16 elements. I'm just going to tell you from my mind, and you can then read it here later. And that is that, yes, our body is made actually from more than 16 elements. But Paramhansa Yogananda says, before we can run, we have to learn how to walk. And we may as well just assume that the most important 16 elements, just get those right first. And so I'm going to go over what some of these 16 elements are this evening, and how we can get these 16 elements into our bloodstream. A very important thing on this is that, let's see here in my notes, millions of people every day emit at least 6 to 10 of these elements from their food. Meaning, I don't know, let's say that I really like cornflakes and milk or something. That will give me some of the elements, but it won't give me all of the elements that I need. And just as if we're going to build a building with bricks and cement, that if you don't put enough cement in the mortar between the bricks, that the house will fall down. And the same with your physical body, that if you're not putting in the right elements that it's made out of, that it's going to start falling apart. But if you put in the proper elements and give them in the right amounts and the right proportions that it's made out of, then it can last and go on the way that it's supposed to go on for a very, very long time. So I'm going to go over what these 16 elements are and some of the most important ones. And then some of these elements I'll let you look up on your own yourself. Okay, so let's see here. Let's find these 16 elements. I'll read these for you slowly right now. The ever-present elements are iron, nitrogen, sulfur, oxygen, hydrogen, phosphorus, chlorine, potassium, iodine, carbon, fluorine, calcium, sodium, magnesium, silicon, manganese, and interestingly, what was written here is copper also. I say interestingly because that then makes the number 17. And so you can decide for yourself whether you want manganese to be number 16 and copper to be 17, and you just don't worry about copper. That would be just fine. But these 16 here, you can leave off copper. These are the ones that your body more or less is made out of, and you need to get the proper amount of them. I'm going to start with hydrogen. And it's such a fun element because it's a small element, and because of its size, it has the power to penetrate into every single cell. And in the notes here, it says, if you get enough hydrogen, it will prevent congestion, inflammation, pus, poor circulation, cold hands and feet. It will influence nerve conduction and secretions. It will assist in perspiration. It will act as a cooling process, and so on and so forth. In fact, no matter what the acid condition, it can be neutralized by hydrogen properly administered. And this will help eliminate toxins. And it's impossible to eliminate some of the toxins without this element in some form. In the realm of natural healing, hydrogen is a potent medicine. It gives life, it gives pep, it gives radiance. And let's think about it. Here, I'm just going to read a little bit more. In the latter capacity, the lemon ranks foremost, with the lime a close second. But the lemon especially is truly a supreme gift of the gods, and its uses are legion. As an antiseptic, it has no equal. We know even that lemon will kill bacteria in the outer world, but we can put it in our body, and our body's fine with it, and it kills the bacteria in our body. And that's all due to this one element, hydrogen, that we really need to make sure that we're getting enough in our body at all times. Let me balance this out, though, by reading a little more. By the token that all things are good in their place, there are, of course, occasions when much citrus fruit is contraindicated, temporarily at least. Especially, this is so of the lemon, which thins the blood. So if you're anemic, if you're a very thin person, if you're very elderly, or if there's a tendency to profuse bleeding or ulcerated stomach, then the lemon should be used with discretion and only under capable guidance. So of course, everything needs to be in its own place. And when we go on a citrus fast or when we go on the 9-day diet, that this can stir up a lot of latent toxins that are in the body, and laxatives can be used to get rid of those. Another thing that can be done is drinking salt water if you go on a big diet with a lot of citrus fruit. So that's just something to understand. Now I'm going to share my screen again. Let me check my notes one more time just to see. Very good. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to read about carbon. This is very important. All of life is made on carbon. And let's make sure we're going to get this right. Correct. So here we go. We're sharing the screen. And we're reading together this yellow highlighted part about carbon. 1/3 of what we eat keeps us alive. The other 2/3 keeps the doctors alive. Dear student, if ever a truism applied to any one item of the human dietary, there seems to be no contention whenever the subject of health is under consideration, that it does apply in the matter of the average person's consumption of carbohydrates. In fact, seldom indeed is there occasion to caution anyone against ignoring this class of food. Rather, as a general rule, the case reversed, but with few exceptions, if any. And the warning against too free use of it is one of the first commands the food scientist or any healer who understands the laws governing nutrition issues to the ailing patient or to the open-minded disciple who would be a jump ahead of illness by learning to prevent it. So let's go through the notes here on carbon, then I'll explain. This is super important because what we just read there is telling you, really, if you start to back off and eliminate carbon in your diet, that it can really help with healing. And some people who are a little maybe ignorant will say, yeah, but everything has carbon in it. And that's true. They're not ignorant on that fact. Even though every healthiest thing you could think of, a carrot, certainly has carbon in it because a carrot has some sugar in it, and sugar is carbon. And carbon is the building block of all of nature. But the question is, how much carbon is there, and of what type is that carbon, and what's it going to do to our digestive system, our bloodstream? So let's see what else we have highlighted in the notes here. Again, these are all from the Preceptor lessons. You can see right on my screen there, Preceptor 34 is where that part on carbon came. There's 3 parts. So this second part I'll read in yellow. Our sole wish is to give our students a photographic clearness of the treachery of food temptation, the disastrous effects of excess stimulation via overeating of certain foods, particularly carbohydrates, and reminding you that the manner of living is constantly changing, thus requiring rapid readjustment of our eating habits as well as other activities, other times, and other methods. We see the unreliability of old customs in modern life. And I think this is very important, that the world is changing so quickly and so rapidly everywhere, and we're learning how to do things in wonderful and new ways. We're learning what really doesn't work. And we need, as we transition into a higher age, into a place where multiple cultures are coming together, we want to be taking the best of every culture. And we need to learn to let go of whatever our own culture has that's not good for us and take what's good. Also, as we combine cultures, but I'll get into this in a little bit when we get into food combining, it's not right to just take everything from everywhere and eat it all at once. And now it's great, I have it all. That some cultures have been around for a very long time and they've learned what works. And then when they start bringing in other things from other cultures, if it's not done in the right way, it can lead to more harm than good. By the way, we have people from all over the world watching, and I just want to say hi to my friends in South Africa and Singapore. I'm so happy we can all be together this evening and that we can be studying these teachings together. Let's scroll down here a little bit with carbon. This is super important. For one of my friends here, actually happens to be a bread maker, which certainly is high in carbohydrates. And so I'm not just going on a rant and rave here to say that carbohydrates are bad, period. That, let's just read this. In their proper place, they are good, necessary food elements. In ailments as such ailments as colds, diabetes. By the way, someone wrote and asked about diabetes. Here's your answer right here, carbon. And maybe I'll get into that a little bit more. In such ailments as colds, diabetes, tumors, high blood pressure, and overweight, they are the first chemical to omit. For the sedentary worker, the amount needed is indeed limited. For the growing active child, the case is reversed. Very important, because if we just go on this rant and rave and say, oh, all carbohydrates are bad, no. Children need them. We need to just pump these carbohydrates into the child whose cells are just multiplying and changing, and they're rapidly growing, and they're running around at 100 miles an hour. And they need a lot of carbon. And so bread's great for them. But if we are sitting in our office all day long, typing in our computer, and we're not getting our exercise like the doctor recommends, and then we're suffering from something like colds or diabetes, take this out of your diet. If you have a job where you're doing a lot of manual labor and you're, I don't know, building houses or something, or digging or whatever, or if you're an athlete and you're burning a lot of calories every day, you're going to need these carbohydrates to burn. We don't want to lose weight. We want to be healthy here. And so everything in its place. So you have to understand how this works. However, if you are not exercising a lot, if you're not doing a lot of work, and you have a cold, drop out the carbon. See what happens. And I mean, at this point, drop out it's almost like you have petrol, if you've ever poured that into a can, and diesel. And those two also are carbon that we burn in our cars, very interestingly, different molecular chains, but they're carbon. But that diesel is a heavier carbon, and you can take it. I've never tried this experiment, but I've been told you can just put a match in the diesel, and because it doesn't burn easily, that you have to turn it into a fine mist. And so the same way, there's heavy carbons, say in the starches, rice and potatoes, and those are harder to burn. And then there's lighter carbons in the fruits. So take the lighter carbons and get rid of the heavy carbons for a few days if you want to experiment with this. So I wanted to share the screen on carbon. There's part 3. Let's see if anything, I didn't highlight anything there. So I'll come back, let you see my face for whatever that's worth. And so do study this again. That was carbon. So far we've gone over hydrogen and carbon. And let's see here what is next after carbon. It'll take me a little moment here. I put in iron here in your notes. It's obviously an important one. You know, here's an interesting thing about iron, that the amount actually that is in the human body is actually very, very small, but it's highly necessary for all cell structure, and it aids in the control of cell functions. And very little iron is stored in the body. This is why I included it. And so a daily supply is essential to life. Some foods rich in iron are lettuce, leeks, spinach, strawberries, asparagus, so on and so forth. You can read it. You can study that. But so it's not in your blood all the time. It's not like you can just go without it for a while and you'll be okay. We need to be replenishing it. Of course, if you go on a fast for a few days, it's all right. But if you don't get it for weeks and weeks or something like that, you're going to have problems. I can't help it. I have to tell this story. My roommate in college, his sister was going to a very, very prestigious medical school in America. And her hair was falling out. And she's a doctor. I mean, she's studying to be a doctor, obviously very bright, intelligent, and her hair's falling out in med school. So they're doing all these tests. They're trying to figure out why is her hair falling out. And it turned out her diet. She did not have good diet. She was just doing all this studying and would go home and eat. And she was just living on cereal with milk. Only if you're American, you probably know what Cocoa Puffs are. I don't know what the Indian equivalent is, or in South Africa, but just a breakfast cereal without much nutrition. And the equivalent Dr. Pepper, which is like thumbs up. That was all she was eating for weeks and weeks, and her hair started falling out. And she was studying to be a doctor. That's the thing about all of this, is that you need to do your own research and understand. And I, this evening, have given you, and it's not me, it's the great ones that I'm just a channel for, have given you a platform where you can do your research. If you tried to just type into Google right now, what is correct diet, you will be lost for 10 incarnations. You'll be reading all kinds of stuff that's so conflicting you won't know what to do. But if you take these notes I've given you, use those as your basis, and then do a little research here and there and get understanding, you'll be set to have the deepest understanding. So anyway, iron, of course, is a little bit needed. And now I'm going to go into nitrogen. And nitrogen also is really important. Nitrogen actually is one of the acid-forming elements, especially if we take it in the form of meat. And if we take it in other lighter things like legumes and milk, of course, is okay, that it's not as acid-forming. But we need it. So don't think that, okay, I'm going to try to make my body highly alkaline, so I'll drop out all the carbon, I'll drop out all the protein. No, no, no. Your body, you need muscles. Even if you don't want to have big bodybuilder muscles, you still need muscles. And the muscles, every day, the cells are taking in protein and they're dividing and they're making new cells that need this. Your heart itself is a muscle. It needs nitrogen. It needs protein. And so there's incomplete proteins, which are, this is important, I highlighted on your notes. Incomplete proteins are those which will maintain life, but not promote growth or ensure health of body. So the complete proteins come from meat, come from eggs, and come from milk, which is good. Also, this says that complete proteins are found in wheat, which is interesting. But if we're trying to take incomplete proteins, like pulses, and here I haven't studied this enough to tell you whether lentils and dal, whether that's a complete protein or an incomplete protein. So I'll let you do your research on that. I believe dal is an incomplete protein, but I want to give you only science and what's true and what the wise ones have said, and not my own misunderstanding or anything like that. So you can study that. But the important thing here is that we need to get incomplete, or we need to get complete proteins. Because when we get complete proteins, that's going to give a lot of energy. It's going to give pep, radiance, life, that we can grow more muscle. We can grow all of the different cells. That nitrogen is the builder. Carbon is burned to give energy, and it is burned for heat in the body. The same way if you live in a cold country, you would put a log, I don't know, in the fireplace to burn, to heat the home. So carbon, you use it to burn like that, and that comes from the starches and the bread, but it won't allow you to grow muscle and to grow new cells a little bit. But so you need nitrogen, and we need it to be healthy. And I'm just going to read this. It is not enough merely to be kept alive, which would happen if we only eat starches and vegetables, but we have to get enough protein. It is not enough merely to be kept alive. Children have a right to the food which will promote normal growth and strength. And adults should be satisfied with nothing less than vigorous, radiant health. It is time for a little intelligence to be used in this field. And of course, plenty reliable information is available for those who acquire and use it. I'm going to go ahead. I didn't write this quote in your notes, actually because I couldn't find it. So I'm paraphrasing here, but I know that Paramhansa Yogananda said it. He said that Westerners eat too much protein, and that Easterners eat too much starches. And it's just true. I've lived on both sides of the planet almost half my life now, on one side and then the other. And we need to learn to find a balance between that. And either one is going to, if you have too much protein, it's going to put a tremendous strain on your kidneys, especially if you're eating it in the form of meat, and it's going to make your body acidic, and it's going to cause problems. It will do some good also. I'll get more into that in the meat section. But if you eat too much starch, that also is going to cause diabetes. It's going to cause problems. So moderation in all things is really the way. So nitrogen, that was another one of the 16 elements. And that is your protein, and that is the builder again. I've only gone over 3 or 4 of these 16 elements, but we have to keep moving on so that this class finishes on time. I'm just going to check my personal notes here and make sure I didn't miss anything on the 16 elements. And I think we're good. We're going to move on to food combining rules. I'm going to go back and share my screen once again, and we'll read some of the highlighted things here. Before I even share my screen, I'm just going to tell you, these rules I'm going to give you right here, they're difficult. They're really, really hard to do. They're hard to follow, and I don't follow them for lots of reasons, usually mainly due to social reasons, that I've found that more than getting my diet just perfect, that being a harmonious person, that I'm a monk and I live within a family of other monks, but having harmony with all of the other monks is much more important to me than keeping my diet just right. If a host takes me out to dinner in some city when I'm traveling and giving lectures, that to become a fanatic and say, oh, no, I have to follow this rule and that rule and make people feel bad, it's simply not worth it. And so you will have to find your balance. But when you get a little free time, when you get some alone time in life, or if you're feeling not well, then there's the time to really put these principles into place that I'm going to share with you, these food combining rules. So let's share the screen. Let's get into it. So food combining rules, let's read here from the highlights. To obtain the best results from your food, the matter of properly combining the items used at one meal and reducing them to the very minimum should be given careful consideration. Okay, that's just an intro for this. I'll read it because he'll probably say it better than I will. While the body does require various types of food for harmonious balance, it is impossible to handle them all in one sitting. In the beginning, healthy, normal cells have selective intelligence, the same as the composite man, and possess the faculty of choosing that which they need and attempting to discard that which they cannot utilize. In most cases, due to misuse, they have lost that power. They means us, but they also means ourselves. They have lost that power of selection, as have the taste buds in the mouth. All this is the result of years of ignorant disregard for their normal requirements. Let me just explain and talk about this a little bit more. So let's say that we eat a meal and we eat a lot of nitrogen and proteins and we eat the carbon and we eat 15 different vegetables and we drink some milk and I don't know what else. We have a piece of cake and this happens all the time when we go out to dinner together and people all are sharing their meals, or we go to a buffet and we haven't read these rules and we think, hooray, I can eat it all. And here's the deal, when you're young, you can eat it all, it's fine. Why? Because your cells are still normal, they're still healthy, and each cell actually is intelligent. And the stomach cells, they're doing their job and they're saying, I need a little bit of this, and then those cells send that protein. Your human body's fascinating. That there's an intelligence in there that would know that this bicep needs some more nitrogen because it was doing curls in the gym, and it knows that it's going to take it from the stomach and that it will send it via the bloodstream there. As much nitrogen is needed, and if you eat too much nitrogen, then it's just going to pass through. And it's the same with all of the other elements. It's amazing to know that the stomach cells have that much intelligence. By the way, I just am going to say this for the person suffering from diabetes. Your kidneys also, my friend who's a doctor, Dr. Aditya, he told me that your kidneys are like a miniature brain. That when he started studying them, that the amount of intelligence that the kidneys have, they're constantly monitoring your bloodstream and saying, we need to filter out this, we need more of that. Of course, the kidneys, one of the main things they're doing is filtering your bloodstream to make it alkaline. And so they're taking the blood and taking out the things that are making it acidic. Help your kidneys along, don't abuse them. They're your friends, you need them. And so if you eat more alkaline things, you won't suffer later on, just as a very general thing. Anyways, back to the stomach. So it's, as we get older especially, that we cannot anymore just start to eat 100 different things in one meal and hope that it turns out all right. It won't. That those cells, they've started to be able to lose that selective intelligence. And so then if we eat following the hard rules that I'm going to give you here a little bit below, it makes it way easier. Then those stomach cells, they don't have to make decisions. All of us human beings, that if we have too many decisions put on us at one time, it just gets difficult and we kind of shut down. But if our job is given to us in an easy, simplified manner, okay, we like to do our job. And it's the same with every single organ in your body, that those organs, they want to do their job, but we cannot overtax them and we can't make them work too hard. So let's see what else is trying to happen on my screen here. Yes, I highlighted so we can get to the do's and the don'ts. So the do's: use a mono diet occasionally to give the vital organs a much needed rest. That if we're constantly eating, if you never fast, your stomach, it's working day in and day out. It even works at night. If you eat late at night and then go to bed, I'm going to refrain from going into the spiritual world here and tell you how it works when you're asleep. However, if there's interest, please write or call or WhatsApp or whatever. The organizer's in Kolkata, and I'm happy to do a part 2 of this class for deeply spiritual people, for people who really want to know what's diet doing when I practice Kriya, or what's going on with my astral body and diet. But I'm going to stay off that topic for right now, so you let Ananda Kolkata know, and we'll go into that in a part 2 if you want it. Let's come back to a mono diet. So your stomach, it needs a rest. So give it a rest. Just eat apples, just eat fruits, or one fruit, just eat oranges. You'll feel tremendously better. Your stomach will thank you. I don't know if it's a he or she. I need to brush up on my Hindi. But your stomach will thank you, and it will say, thanks for giving me a break. Your kidneys, they'll thank you that they're not having to constantly make your bloodstream, you're putting in the acid foods, and it has to work and make your bloodstream alkaline again. So that's easy because that's occasionally. So every once in a while, you're not feeling well or you just want to take a break, do it. By the way, eat only when you're hungry. Listen to your body. If you're not hungry, don't eat. That your body's trying to tell you. It knows what it wants when it wants. Listen to it. Okay, the number 2 do is use but one starch at a meal. Very important. And of course, I told you I don't follow these. Just the other 2 days ago at lunch, I had potatoes, rice with the dal as a second course. I had roti, and I had the tapioca, what's that called here? Sabudana. And afterwards, I was this close, I almost went down. I almost had to take a nap. That it was heavy. It was yummy. I loved it. It was great. We had a fun time all cooking together, and everyone was participating and making good things. So I'm happy I had it. It's fine. But I felt the effects for sure. And so again, and especially as you get older, when you're younger, you can handle it. Go for it. I'm all for it. But as you get older, use just one starch, and you'll find that you feel much lighter and that you can easily digest it and that everything works well. So that rule, it's a little harder in social situations, but sometimes it's all right that you can just go for the rice or just go for roti or just have bread. Fine. Okay, combine proteins with fruits, vegetables, and fats. A sample meal there is cheese, fruit juice, raw salad, and cooked spinach. And this works so well. I want to explain why it works. It's back at the top of the notes. What are vegetables and fruits? They're alkaline. What are the proteins going to be? They're going to be acidic. So you can feel this. If you just were to take a huge block of cheese and just try to eat, like, I don't know, 300 grams of heavy cheese, your body's going to start saying, no. But if you start saying, I have a lot of lettuce with this, I'll have tomatoes, I'll have some cooked vegetables, spinach, whatever your favorite vegetables are, it's easier to eat even a little more protein. And your body's happy. Now the kidneys are saying, yeah, I can handle this because in this one meal, it's not just huge acid forming food, that it's balanced and that it's all right. And you can even make the overall burn, for lack of better terminology, alkaline, even though you're taking in the proteins which are needed. So you can come up with all kinds of wonderful meals that are just fruits and vegetables and get a little fat. We'll talk about that if needed also, with the proteins. And then this last do is just so wonderful to remember. Vegetables combine with all foods. No matter what you're eating, if you add some vegetables to it, it's going to make you healthier. It's just so easy to remember. So those aren't too hard so far. We can pretty much do that. Now let's get into the do nots. Do not use more than one protein at a meal. Okay, the example right there is don't eat fish, cheese, eggs, and milk all at one time. Okay, again, that's not too hard. As you start looking at these rules and you look at your culture and meals that you might particularly like, you might find this a little hard, that perhaps there is, some type of protein that you like to mix with this other type of protein, or what. For example, I eat eggs every once in a while, and when I do, I enjoy a little cheese on them. And right there, it's breaking that. Of course, I'm not too strict with myself on this, but when I get unwell, I look right at this and I say, okay, what do I need to do here? And then I would only have one protein. I think we're okay on time, but I was just going to go into the proteins also. One of the wonderful proteins are nuts, are dairy, anything that's made out of milk. And if we can use those, they're much easier to digest than some of the other proteins. And again, if we don't mix them, if we just make one protein, then it becomes very easy. Okay, the next, do not use starches and citrus fruits together. For example, don't drink lemonade or nimbu pani or orange juice or whatever, and bread. Don't have those two together. This is one of the rules that I actually, to be 100% honest with you, I just completely don't understand the why of it. The rest of this completely makes sense when you look at the 16 elements, when you look at the acid and the alkaline. This one I do it because Paramhansa Yogananda said to do it as best I can, and that's all I can say about that one because I don't have any deep understanding on it actually. Perhaps some doctors watching this and could enlighten us all in the notes section later on. Let's see. Let's move on, and here's where it gets super hard. This is the one that's hard. This one's hard, and then to follow all of these all the time is hard. Because you can have one meal that's okay, but then you realize, did I do this? And what about, like, for example, did I use more than one protein? And did I use more than one starch? But this last one's really, it's the kicker, as we would say. Don't use proteins and starches at the same meal. Here's an example of fish and bread. Might pertain to you if you're Bengali. Let me see if I can give some examples for all cultures. That would mean if you're from South India, don't have curd rice. That there's protein from the curd or the yogurt, and that there's starch from the rice. If you're Italian, that would mean don't have pizza. That the cheese is the protein and the starch is the wheat. By the way, one of my friends here in India was saying, is pizza, is it healthy for you, all this pizza and pasta? And I said, look, it's wheat, it's tomatoes, it's cheese. There you are right there with the Shahi Paneer, with the tomatoes, the wheat, and the cheese. And there we go in America with a tomato cheese sandwich. It's all the same. It's the wheat, it's the cheese, it's the tomatoes. It's just that we like to mix them up in different ways, and then my culture has it the best. But what are we all doing? Whether you're Italian, North Indian there, or American in that example, we're mixing proteins and starches. And so for me, this is the absolute hardest meal because in every culture, we do it all over the place. And I do my best on this one, but again, I have to keep it social and just be harmonious and loving and joyful. So I just do my best. But do experiment with this and do your best with all of this and don't drive your family nuts. And I'll talk more about that in the conclusion. So these are the do's and the don'ts. And let's get into the daily diet. Perhaps I'll just keep sharing my screen here. Yeah, I need to share my screen for the daily diet, so we're just going to keep looking at this together. I can be in the background, not a problem. Of course, don't eat too much white sugar, but let's just read the yellow parts. Cooked vegetables should be eaten with the juice in which they were boiled. Super duper important. I was talking about cultures coming together, and maybe Americans who had been eating meat their entire life are now reading some spiritual teachings from India and they want to become vegetarians. Very good, but if you take your broccoli and you boil it in 2 liters of water, the water turns green, you pour out the water and eat the broccoli and think I'm a healthy vegetarian now. All of the most vitamins are water soluble. Some of them are fat soluble, but most of your vitamins, which are storage for energy that your body needs, you just pour them down the drain, and you're not going to be feeling very good, and you're going to be feeling like, how can I be a vegetarian? I'm feeling terrible. And being a vegetarian is a great thing, but we need to know what we're doing with it. And this is a mistake. In India, this isn't done because this culture is so much, I just do it the way my parents did it. And it goes all the way back to, you know, a higher general or yuga, I should say, where everyone was enlightened or something. And it's just, everybody's been doing it the same way. And generally, vegetables are cooked in oil and they're not heavily boiled and then throwing out the water. And so in India, we stay healthy that way. But as all the cultures are coming together, we need to learn about these things. And so that's a very important thing. Cooked vegetables should be eaten with the juice they were boiled in. Okay, so let's get into the daily diet. Here makes all these rules I'm giving you easy. And by the way, don't stress out about this. I'm going to make it simple for you again right now. Eat more fruits and vegetables. If you only do that, if that's all you take away from this, you don't like studying, you're good. You become a better human being if you eat more fruits and vegetables. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Here's the daily diet. This was given by Paramhansa Yogananda. What this is I don't want to think about 16 elements. I don't want to know what iron does and how much hydrogen I need. Just what should I eat so that I get everything I need? Here it is. Eat half of an apple, 1/4 of a grapefruit, 1 lime, 1 orange, spinach, pineapple. I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to talk a little bit about this. How does it work? Look up spinach. Look up how many of these elements, look up what elements are in spinach. Of course, it depends on what soil it's grown in, and God, you don't want to get into that, because then you have to start growing your own spinach and looking up all these 16 elements and making sure it's in the soil. But it is something to experience or think about. It's interesting intellectually. But if you look up what elements are in spinach, you'll see why it's on Master's daily diet, that it has almost all of them. It has almost all of the vitamins that your body needs. And so he put together a little menu here that if you eat even many of these every day, you're done. You don't have to think about any more of the rules or anything. You just eat this, you're good to go. So that's why the spinach is on there. Carrot is another one like that. He has the milk products so that you get easily digestible protein. I'll go into that just for a moment. And this is Jemal speaking. And I want to differentiate between what Paramhansa Yogananda said and what is my opinion. But there's fads that come in diet, and people get all into it. And they think, oh, this is the next big thing. And one of those fads right now, at least it's a fad in my opinion, is being vegan and thinking that you can get all your protein from all the vegetables. And I believe that you can. You can do it, but it's going to take a lot of effort and knowledge, and you really need to study and know what you're doing. But if you just do this and get enough protein and get enough calcium, even though spinach does have calcium, if you get it from the milk, then you're all good to go. And to me, this is a diet that is just, it's balanced, it works. I leave it up to every human being. The last thing we want is some person telling you you're a bad person because of what you eat. I want everyone to be happy, and a part of being happy is eating things that we enjoy, let's face it. But here, again, this is just, it's an easy thing to look at and to incorporate. And even if you don't incorporate all of these, perhaps you can't get some of these in the part of the world that you're living in. Take some of them, take what you can, see what would be a good substitute. By the way, olive oil's on there, and I'll mention that in a little bit when we get to the subject of the fats and the oils. This diet right here, it will keep your body highly alkaline. You see that it has all the citrus fruits on there. You see that it has plenty of vegetables. By the way, I'm going to throw this in there. I have a big sweet tooth. I love to go to Kolkata maybe because of all the sweets that they have there. But a healthier thing to do is to eat raisins, if you're looking at the screen right there. Eat dates, eat figs. These are nature's candy, and they're much healthier for you than eating candy bars and anything like that. So anyway, there you have it, the daily diet that will help keep you healthy and young for many, many years. I'm going to just switch back to the other screen here and relook at the notes for a second, and then we will keep moving on. That daily diet, though, there might be one thing I wanted to read at the end of that. Let's take a look here in my notes. Oh, this is silly, but you know, I used to really not like apples. That they were so boring. They were hard. I don't know. I just didn't like them at all. But I bring it up because you can train yourself to like anything. You can absolutely, and so I also used to not like carrots at all. Again, they were hard. It was all this chewing. And I just didn't find them enjoyable. But then when I came across this daily diet, when I started studying a little bit, reading, understanding, Master said, eat a carrot every day. All right, I'll try it. And eventually I came to like it. And you can change your habits is the point of this. And your likes and dislikes, they're really just, it's a continued habit pattern. But don't be afraid to change a little bit your habit patterns. Also, don't try to just give up all the bad habits. You have nature abhors a vacuum. But then you're just going to be sitting there thinking, I'm hungry and why can't I have this? Make small changes and substitute the thing that wasn't so good for you with something that's a little bit better for you, and learn to like that and go slowly. Okay, so I'm also going to say this at this point. It was in this daily diet section, but there's something that Paramhansa Yogananda gave that's just a wonderful thing, and it says, whenever one is hungry, he may take a large tablespoon of thoroughly ground nuts in half a glass of water or in a glass of orange juice. And this is something I've fasted on this many times. Also, if you want to build up more mass in your body, if you're thin and you want to gain a little bit of weight, if you want more muscle, this is a wonderful way to do it in a healthy way. Is take almonds. In India, we have the mixers, and they grind things very, very well into a fine powder. And you can take almonds, grind them into a fine powder, mix it with some orange juice, mix it up a little bit again. It becomes actually quite creamy. It's enjoyable to the palate, but it's also super healthy. And again, the alkaline and acidic thing, that it's going to be alkaline, and it's a wonderful way to get protein into your body. I'll go into those spiritual aspects of that in the other classes, or in the next class if you guys want it. So we'll move on now to meat, which is always the question as the cultures start mixing together and wondering. And of course, in the West, that people are eating so much meat. And in the East, people just think of it as the worst thing that you absolutely could ever do. Oh my God, we might just die if we ate a little meat. And so then when you live in both worlds, like I do, you wonder what is true, what is right. So let's talk about it. First of all, just as I was talking about the carbons, and I was talking about diesel versus petrol, there's higher forms of meat and lower forms, and there's going to be ones that are really bad for you and ones that, well, it's all right. So the ones that are really bad for you are beef and pork. And Paramhansa Yogananda did say it. I didn't put it as a quote in your notes, but he did say it, that without a doubt, red meat, which would be beef and pork, causes cancer. I read some peer-reviewed journals of doctors, and these seem to be Indian doctors, but that they grew up in London and spent their life there, and so obviously their culture would have been to be vegetarian, but they were in a meat-eating world and raised in a Western environment and went to medical school there. Anyways, they made medical reports, I don't know the exact names of these things, journals that were peer-reviewed that proved, according to these journals, that eating red meat causes cancer. Paramhansa Yogananda said that is why there's such a high prevalence of cancer in America, because people there eat so much beef. So if you're going to eat meat, all right, but from what I would ask is if you could eliminate beef and pork. And then, okay, if you want to eat chicken or fish, all right, try not to eat that every day. Maybe you could eat it once a week, or even better, once a month. And if you wanted, you could eat lamb. Lamb, Paramhansa Yogananda said, is the most alkaline out of all of those. Of course, that's relative to beef and pork. But I imagine, I haven't done the experiment in the laboratory, but I imagine that lamb is more acidic than eating paneer or something like that. So everything's relative. And so if you can cut down your meat intake and start to bring it down, if you are a meat eater, and start to replace it with nuts, cottage cheese, eggs, milk, cream, bananas even. That's an interesting thing that's there in your notes. I didn't know bananas have any protein. Maybe they have a little, I don't know. But certainly nuts, cottage cheese, eggs, milk, that this will help you. Here, this is highlighted yellow in your notes. If you eat chicken, lamb, or fish, have a vegetable salad with them. Of course, I was telling you that earlier in the do's and the don'ts section, that proteins combine well with vegetables, but make sure that you get enough vegetables. By the way, eating raw vegetables is more healthy than eating the cooked vegetables, that you're going to get more of the life force out of them, which will be in the spiritual class. You'll also get more of the vitamins out of them, that as you cook it longer and longer, that the vitamins, that you start to kill them and that it starts to go away. Of course, obviously the water soluble ones can go away into the water. Don't get fanatical about that. And there's, again, that's all relative to how much you want to boil the vegetables or steam them or bake them or whatever you're going to do. But I brought this up because if you consider a potato to be a vegetable, that please don't try to eat that raw, that the human stomach is not designed to handle any of the starches in their raw state, that some of the things we need to cook. Even some of the vegetables, that it's just too much. You can feel it, that you're just not going to digest it as well. And cooking it lightly is going to make it much more digestible. Anyways, I got onto that by we're talking about eating meat. And if you're going to eat some meat, eat some vegetables with it. Your kidneys, they will thank you. Your whole body will thank you. Now, let's go to eggs. And of course, in India, some people think eating eggs is just about the worst thing. Here, Paramhansa Yogananda said, go ahead and eat eggs. People love to argue on and on that, oh, he only said that because he was in America and having to deal with these Westerners who are so used to eating meat. And so you have to decide what you want to do. Paramhansa Yogananda did say, go ahead and eat them. He said, oh, I'll just read this quote right now, and then I'll talk more about eggs. But he said, eating meat is not worse than eating just a boiled, disintegrated hash of vegetable corpses. Eating meat is not worse than eating just a boiled, disintegrated hash of vegetable, we use the word corpses. And if you boil your vegetables too much, they do turn into corpses. So the rest of this quote here, and it's in your notes, by eating boiled vegetable dinners, vegetarians lose strength and inwardly want to go back to a meat diet. So why would Paramhansa Yogananda say that eating meat is not worse than eating a boiled, disintegrated hash of vegetable corpses? And it's because when you eat meat, you are getting all of those 16 elements that you need. That it was in that poor little animal that was running around all happy before we killed it and ate it. But those 16 elements are there. And so on that level, your body's going to be happy. On a spiritual level, your body's not going to be happy with eating meat. On an alkaline acid level, your body's not going to be happy. That you see that many of the meat-eating countries, that they have all kinds of kidney problems there because their body's having to constantly filter their bloodstream and make it alkaline again. So it looks like meat eating is working in the beginning for maybe the first 60, 65 years of your life, depending on what kind of meat you eat and how heavily you eat it, because you're getting all of the 16 elements. So you'll have big muscles, you'll be strong, you'll be happy. But after a while, it's going to take its toll. So that quote was there because if you're only eating the boiled vegetables and you're not getting any of the 16 elements, you're going to feel weak, you're going to feel unhappy. And so somewhere in these notes is that the human body seems to function best on a combination of animal products and vegetable products. Animal products meaning take the milk, don't kill the cow, don't eat the cow, just eat the milk and drink the milk. And from my own experience in life, that it seems that some balance of animal products, meaning milk, and then the vegetables, give the best overall health. Each person, you're free to do whatever you want, of course, and I'm not here to criticize anyone. We're all here to learn together and learn what works. But now this is all coming back to eggs. So, again, eggs have many of the 16 elements that we need, many of the vitamins that we need in order to be healthy. They are a complete protein, so they're going to build our cells completely, not just give us the incomplete proteins that are only maintaining life, but give us the complete protein that make us have radiant life and really can build all of our cells. So in that way, then, eating eggs is good. If we eat too many eggs, that again, we can have the same problem with the kidneys and with things going acidic. And then I'll cover it more in that spiritual class, but it's on a spiritual level that eating eggs isn't such a good thing. That there's a lot of spiritual qualities that are not good about eggs. But if we're just talking on the physical plane here, then okay. And I lived with Swami Kriyananda for a long time. He ate eggs, and I would wonder about this. But he also seemed to have enough spiritual power that it just wasn't a big deal. So I leave the egg question to each human being, but I think you've got at least an education today on eggs and the pros and the cons. And it's not good just to throw it out and say, oh, it's no good, without knowing, well, what are the positive benefits and the good side of it as well. And then, again, do what suits you and what you feel is right. So I think, let me make sure, pork and beef, no good. Everything else, do what you feel is right. Oh, this is an important point that we need to talk about. And that is Paramhansa Yogananda's guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar, points out that if you measure the digestive system of man from the mouth to the anus, and then you start measuring all of the different animals out there, the cows, the birds, the fish, and you see, now what do all of these things eat? For example, if you measure a lion like that a lion has a very short digestive tract because meat, it starts rotting in the digestive system, and so the lion needs to get rid of that right away. And you start, a pattern forms, and you see that animals that eat meat, that they have very short digestive tracts. And animals who eat vegetables, let's say, or herbivores or whatever, they have a certain length. And when you go through all of this becomes fascinating, that you see that what man is of the same other animals that are designed to eat fruits, and only fruits, which is actually really, really fascinating. I gave that a lot of thought. I love fruit just anyways, but I don't just live on fruit because I find it hard to get, obviously, all of these 16 elements that we were talking about. In order to get enough protein, which isn't one of the 16 elements, but get the nitrogen, and get enough calcium and all of that. So we need well-balanced diets. It's just an interesting little piece of trivia. I don't know what you're going to do with it. Perhaps incorporate more fruit into your diet. I don't know, but that was an interesting thing. So that's in your notes, and you can read about it. Okay, next we're going to move on. We're going to go to the 9-day diet. And this, it's kind of too bad I can't see all of you. But it would just be nice. I feel like I'm really doing a lot of talking here, but I guess that's just the only way this can be right now. But we will come to the question session, and then it will become more interactive. Until then, let's go to the 9-day diet. So this is a diet that Paramhansa Yogananda gave. It's a cleansing diet. It will, I know a lot of people, they've been cured of many diseases by doing this diet. We did this as a group in December, this last year, December 2019. If God willing, is all I can say at this point, but it would be wonderful if we as a group, we were sharing all of these things on WhatsApp, we were showing each other what we were doing, our experiences. It's a difficult diet to get through, but having friends makes life easier. So perhaps those who are interested, let's see how my schedule goes. Let's see what's going on in the world. But perhaps sometime in the future, we could all do this 9-day diet together online. We would share videos. We can communicate on WhatsApp. We can have fun together. I'm going to share the screen. We're going to talk about what is the 9-day diet. So the 9-day diet, it is an effective method of ridding the system of poisons. When you have a cold and your nose is running, what your body is doing is it is getting rid of poisons in your body. And it's not just poisons like you drank some battery acid or something. Even it means that you might have too much carbon in your system, and we need to eat the carbon, it's fine. You ate all of the bread, good. But if you didn't go out running and burn that off, then when your body's producing the carbon dioxide, these things that can build up in your system. And carbon dioxide, that it is a toxin. It's not a terrible toxin, but that it needs to be eliminated and removed from the system. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm sure if I was, I could study and tell you what all of these different poisons are. I just wanted to make it clear that it doesn't just mean outside poisons. It also means that there's processes within our body that it's meant to work like that, but then we need to get rid of it. So what we do on this 9-day diet is we eat these foods that are mentioned right here. Let's read through them. Grapefruit, lemons, oranges, the Vitality Beverage I'll come to. Orange juice, this Swiss Chris is a laxative because on this diet that we're really getting rid of all of the different poisons. A cooked vegetable and a raw vegetable salad. And that's all you eat for 9 days. And what makes this difficult is eating all this citrus fruit. That it's no joke to eat 5 oranges a day and 1.5 grapefruits a day and 1.5 lemons a day. Eating 1 or 2 oranges a day, okay. And eating 5 oranges, you can do it the first couple of days, but after the next days, it gets to be a little bit. But then let's talk about what the Vitality beverage is, then we'll talk about why does this work. So the Vitality beverage is composed of, this is where I learned about spinach. The Vitality beverage is composed of celery, 5 carrots, parsley, and dandelion, turnip greens, or spinach. So what happens on this 9-day diet? And by the way, this Vitality beverage teaches you something about boiling vegetables. Because you make this Vitality beverage by boiling celery, carrots, parsley, and let's say spinach in 1 quart of water. Then you take those vegetables and you throw them away. And you drink the water. Why do you drink the water? Because it has been infused with all of the 16 elements. I assume it's all 16, I don't know. But all of the vitamins and elements that your body needs. And so it's not all 16 because the hydrogen's coming from the grapefruit and the lemons and all of that. But the way this diet works is that I believe you're getting all of your 16 elements that you need to stay healthy. You are making your body extremely alkaline because you'll notice there's no protein on this diet and there's no starches. That it's only vegetables and then the highly alkaline fruits, being the citrus fruits. And then the citrus fruit also, it comes in and it stirs up those poisons, as we read in the hydrogen topic, and it cleanses. And you will literally feel every cell being cleansed. You will feel like a new human being after this. And this is just an interesting bit of trivia. I just have to say I love Paramhansa Yogananda. That he said back in I think the 1930s, I don't know exactly when, that your human body is composed of 27 trillion cells. If you go on the internet today and search, all these scientists using calculus and this counting method and that and all our modern instrumentation, they're not sure exactly how many cells are in the human body, but I think they put it somewhere at like maybe 23 to 30 trillion or something. They put a range. And actually, I'm going way off topic here, but it's kind of fun. It's very hard to count because your cells are constantly being born and they're constantly dying. And every different organ has a different rate that they're being born and they're dying at. So it actually is a hard thing to count, but he knew all along of how many cells are there. And now to get back on topic, that you do this diet, it is going to cleanse all 27 trillion cells in your body, every single one, because every single cell actually has like a little mouth. I mean, I know that's not exactly, it doesn't make there, and it's so hungry to be eating the orange juice or whatever, and then it excretes what it doesn't need, and that all goes out through the different channels of elimination in the human body. Fascinating to think that 27 trillion cells can work together and all be getting all of the food that they need every day. Absolutely fascinating. And so if you throw this into the system, your human body, for 9 days, it really, it will cleanse and you'll feel like a new human being. If you want more information on this, go to, actually, if you just type in 9-day diet in Google, the first thing that will show up is Nayaswami Devi's blog. And she's done this for many years. You look at her when you actually know her age, and she looks so young. And I believe that it's from doing this is one of the reasons, doing this diet for many years. I wouldn't do this diet more than once a year. It does, because you're not getting protein, you're not getting carbohydrates, it is taxing on the body a little bit, but it's worth it to do that cleanse. You know, if you own a vehicle, a four-wheeler, we would say in India, that you have to take it every once in a while for maintenance, and they change the oil and they do whatever they do in there, and they, whatever, clean the brake pads or something. It's the same with your human body, that you have to take it and let it have some maintenance every once in a while. You can't just eat what you want all of the time and hope that everything's going to be okay. That you have to, a little bit at least, hopefully learn a little bit more about your human body than I seem to know about cars, on how they work and what maintenance is needed. And so I just look at this 9-day diet as it's maintenance time. It's once a year maintenance time. And I know that I'm going to feel better after it, whether I like it or not. So let's do it. And so I encourage you to give that a go. Do it with friends. Do it with people who have done it before. Let's see if we could maybe do it as one big happy group. Let's see what could happen there. I'll go back here. You can see my face for a moment. I'll again regroup here on notes. So give me a second to do that. Great. Okay, we're coming to fats and oils. And let me just get myself together very briefly and make sure we're still on time. Let's see here. Yes, I think we're right on time. So all is well. So let's just briefly go into oils, into fats that in the West, at least in America, where I was born, the average person is overweight and is just terrified and reading labels. Oh my God, it has this much fat in it, and I'm going to get even fatter. And everyone's trying to not eat any fat, and people just look at like a bottle of oil like, oh my God, get it away from me. And then in India, people seem to just eat much more oil, and it seems to just be all right. So the question, there's two questions here. One is, how much oil do we actually need? And unfortunately, I could only do so much homework on this one, and I did search for this when I was making the class to see what Paramhansa Yogananda said on that, but I couldn't find it. I assume it's a few tablespoons every day, that it's not that much. But don't get fanatical like the Americans sometimes can do and think that you need no oils. Your body needs oils, that your brain, that it's, I've been told anyways, it's not in these teachings, but that your brain, the cells there, that they're mainly made of fat, and if we want to have a strong brain, that we need it there. It is in Paramhansa Yogananda's teachings that the covering of every single one of those 27 trillion cells is made of protein and of lipids, of fats. And so every cell needs some fat. And of course, the cells are constantly being reborn. So in order to make that process go on where they regenerate, you need some fat for that. Paramhansa Yogananda said, let's see here, that, I'm not used to having a lecture for notes. Paramhansa Yogananda also said that fats are needed for oiling the joints, and that they even lubricate the cells in between two cells and the limbs, and it just prevents wear and tear. So we certainly need a certain amount. you can do more research on that and find out what is a reasonable amount. Of course, any extremes are going to cause us pain and suffering. And then, of course, we can get in these notes that you'll be receiving, it says that for vegetarians, cream and butter are the most important animal fats. And so we can also get fat from there. And then the question, of course, becomes where should we be getting this fat from? That there's vegetable fats, there's animal fats, which for vegetarians we would get from mainly cream and butter from milk. But then there's also vegetable fats, for example, like peanut oil or something like that. And so which is the best of all of these? Paramhansa Yogananda really recommended olive oil often. I said that I would talk more about that, and here's the moment for that. So I assume that olive oil is a very good vegetable oil. And then we have cream, of course, from milk, or a byproduct, or I don't want to go into how that exactly comes, but you know how it comes. So for me, I use those two, and then whatever else comes. It's funny that I'm giving this class because I don't make too big of a deal of this, actually. Somebody uses this oil, all right, somebody uses that. If this is something you want to get into and try and figure out what's best, then I say go for it. But, you know, Swami Kriyananda, he didn't make much of diet at all. At the end and the conclusion, I'll show you his little thing of what he said to do, and then basically forget about it. Don't get too much into this, because there's so much more to life and to becoming a well-rounded and good human being. And we can get so just into this one aspect that we miss all the rest of life. And I'm giving this class, and this is an important topic, because if we're not healthy, it's really hard to do all the rest of the things that we need to do. And an example is that if you have health and you lose all of your money, you can remake it. But if you have wealth but no health, you'll be spending all of that money trying to get your health back, and you won't be able to make more money if you have to spend it all. So in that little example there, having health is more important than having wealth. And so this is important, but keep it relative. And again, it's why we need a wise person who shows us how much of my energy should go into this. Anyways, that was all said so that we don't get too fanatical about oils. Let's go on and let's go into fasting. So again, the quote at the beginning of this was that a fast, under the guidance of a specialist, can cure many colds and many different diseases. So I told you, I'm actually just going to read here a little bit. When you catch a cold, fast for 2 days. I said this already, but during a cold, the extra poisons in your body are being thrown off. If you eat food, you obstruct the poison eliminating system of nature with extra food chemicals. So if you cannot handle a complete fast, eat apples, pears, grapes, but don't eat acid fruits. This is like so controversial if I read this. Why not? Okay, so here it says, if you have a cold, drink only 2 glasses of warm water daily. And this is Paramhansa Yogananda speaking. I believe that drinking too much water during a cold is not good, because the extra water comes out constantly through the mucous membrane, making the nose run and causing irritation and accumulation of pus there. Fasting during a cold is very good, for it helps nature effect her own cure without interruption. At the beginning of a cold, it is very good to use a laxative suitable to your system. For laxatives, I would recommend nature's laxatives and very gentle ones. But all of that is said is we're trying to flush the body and get rid of the poisons. And the interesting thing about the water is that you can do too much flushing, and it's time sometimes to back off also. So again, try it. If you have a cold, eat only apples for a day or 2. see what happens, or eat only pears, see what happens. It allows your body to help itself, to cure itself. Also, now there it said not to have the acid fruits. I can't help it, I have to go spiritual for a second. Paramhansa Yogananda had a very, his most advanced disciple, his name was Rajarsi Janakananda. And I don't think these two wise men argued, but they had a little disagreement. And that was whether it was okay to drink orange juice when you had a cold. And one of them said that drinking the orange juice would aggravate the sinuses and the mucous membrane there and make it feel worse. And the other one said no, that because it's so highly alkaline and that it has the hydrogen and that it's going to go in and kill all of the bad bacteria, that it is a good thing during a cold. And how they came to an agreement on it was, well, it's all in the mind at the end, and they both laughed and it was fine. Anyway, all that said is I also have gone on orange juice fast if I'm feeling a little bit not well. It depends on what the not well thing is, but that too, I found that very beneficial. So you can read this yourself of exactly what Paramahansa Yogananda said, and I urge you, give it a try, and you'll see that it really is a helpful and a nice thing. Next on fasting is, and I'll read this. This is from The Art and Science of Raja Yoga. That is a book written by Swami Kriyananda. Yogis recommend fasting 1 day a week, either totally or on water only. They also suggest fasting 3 days once a month on fruit juices. The stomach, which I've already told you, like the rest of the body, needs periods of rest and rejuvenation. You know, this actually, I do my best with it. I've done the fasting 1 day a week on water for a very long time, 16 years. But the fasting, and I find it very beneficial. It's just like a reset for my body once a week. My stomach thanks me. But the fasting 3 days once a month, I'll just be honest with you, it's just too much for me to handle. That it's a lot of fasting, and it just becomes too much for me. And we live in a world where we all have to do a lot of work, and I'm not a yogi who's just sitting around in a cave meditating all day. So that 3 day fast, I haven't done it actually in a long time. But I've experimented with it. I've done it many, many times. And every time I see why the yogis say to do that. Because again, if you do a 3 day orange juice fast, even if you do it twice a year or something like that, it will just get rid of all of the toxins in the body. It will cleanse every cell. It just like resets everything. And it's a very helpful thing. And it can cure a lot of different diseases. Exactly which ones, I'm not qualified to say. And you have to do your own experimentation. If you're going to do a long fast, of course, talk to your doctor. Even if you're going to do a little fast, I would say talk to your doctor if you already have some really serious medical condition, because we wouldn't want to do some kind of fast that's going to aggravate some condition you have. Like earlier we were talking about lemons and citrus fruit not being good for those who have thin blood. So definitely take precautions and don't just jump out there in a wild manner, but at the same time, do experiment. Someone just asked, can I suggest any juice other than orange juice? Fast on apple juice, fast on grape juice. You know, it's nice if you can make these yourself, if you have a juicer and you can make your own apple juice, that when you go into the market these days, because greed has taken over everything, it's difficult to find apple juice that doesn't have artificial flavors in it. And they hide it in the labels. You have to read very closely, but in almost all brands, it's there. Also, when you make the apple juice yourself, that it will have the life force in it. And you know, an apple, it's alive. That if you press it really hard or you drop it, it bruises. If you press my skin really hard, or don't drop me, I will bruise. I'm alive. The apple is alive, and you're taking that life force in. And so it's fine to have the stored juices, that's better than nothing. But if you make that juice yourself right away, grapes are easily and readily available in the market right now. You could experiment with that. Take that life force in, make the juice fresh yourself right there. Watermelon juice, a wonderful, wonderful thing. Again, consult with your doctor. That there's some people who have kidney problems and they're not supposed to have too much potassium, and watermelons are very high in potassium. So if you're young, you can do whatever you like, but as we get older, do pay attention. But what this said from the Art and Science of Raja Yoga is any fruit juice. I mean, so try it. I haven't fasted on tomato juice, but once I bought too many tomatoes and they were going to rot. I put them through the juicer and loved it. So there's and I'm pretty sure that's a fruit actually. So there's all kinds of different things that you can try on that. So don't feel that you have to just try orange juice. Do what works for you and give your stomach a rest. Let your stomach rest. Next quote. And then we're coming to the conclusion here and we'll get into questions. The next quote is again from the Art and Science of Raja Yoga. Yogis and Western medical doctors both say that the toxins in the body soon leave the bloodstream and settle in the joints. Yogis go on to say that old age too first settles in the joints. This is an interesting thing about arthritis and an interesting thing about getting rid of toxins. When I do the part 2 of this class, I'll talk about these toxins in subtle forms and in spiritual ways and yoga postures. But for tonight, that we really want to go on things like a juice fast, even one day a week, to clear the body of all of these toxins. And, you know, there's just little different things that we can see if we start feeling like our joints are aching, that it's a little hint right away. And why let it go on so far that then we have to go spend a lot of money on these things? Try to be wise and it's always the older generation telling the younger generation, don't suffer like I did and try to be wise. And of course, nobody listens because we all have to make our own mistakes. But catch it now and do the best that you can now and try to eliminate these toxins from your body. And don't live in fear like, oh my God, I have no idea how many toxins are in my body right now. Just be practical and be reasonable. I'm going to throw out this one really strange thing. This is not a teaching of masters. This is just something that I've, in my own experience, that when I follow the do's and the don'ts perfectly, I wake up in the morning and my teeth, they still feel very clean. I still brush them, but they feel clean. If I go crazy and break all of those rules and I eat 4 starches with 3 proteins and eat a lot of sugar and whatever else, however you're going to break all those rules, I wake up in the morning and there's a thick coating of plaque on my teeth and my whole body feels heavy. There's an interesting, you can Google this one, there's a correlation between the plaque on your teeth and the plaque in your arteries and your bloodstream. That there's plaque that builds up in your arteries and there's plaque that builds up in your digestive tract. And okay, we can brush our teeth, we can clean that. But how do you clean your digestive tract? How do you clean your arteries? If you fast once a week on water, again, my doctor friend, Dr. Aditya told me this. If you fast 1 day a week on water, your body will go in and start eating that plaque out of the arteries. I assume, this again is an assumption on my part, and it goes into the Kriya Yoga thing, but as we make our body have the bloodstream more alkaline, and if we exercise and bring more oxygen into the bloodstream and we're fasting, that we can just get all of that plaque, we can start to clear it out of the bloodstream. It's a very interesting thing to think about. I didn't even plan on talking about that this evening, but it definitely makes you think. And again, going back to your teeth, which you're well aware of what's going on, even though we have no idea what's going on in our bloodstream and the arteries and in our digestive system. You can easily pay attention there. and see, is this working? And there is a correlation on those different types of plaque. Okay, I'm ready to come to the conclusion. And so let's see whether we should share the screen or not. Let's see what I thought I was going to do on the conclusion, and then we will get to questions. So first of all, I told you in the beginning I'd say this. Can an orange juice fast cure AIDS or cancer or COVID-19? And I wouldn't, let's just take COVID-19. I think it's way too early in this thing to say anything about the power of diet on it. All of these rules I just gave you will help you have a higher immunity, that's for sure. But to say something like a grape fast or something, grape juice is going to cure COVID-19, I wouldn't do that at all. I wouldn't think about that at all. That's not a statement I would make whatsoever. We would need to test that properly with all the doctors in the world and see these things. So don't presume too far on this. Yes, Swami Kriyananda even wrote in the Raja Yoga book that people have cured themselves of cancer with fasting. Okay, but don't you go out and presume on that and you have some big or difficult disease that you're dealing with, and then you think that some little thing like this is going to fix it. Listen to your doctors. I've given you the basics here, the framework from which you can have a better life. But don't take that too far. Listen to the doctors, listen to your own common sense, and start to grow. Also, you're a three-part being. This evening I only talked about your physical body. In other classes we'll talk about your higher self, to not get into it too much. But diseases can live on that also. And so you can even do everything right, and you start following all these rules for years, and you're thinking, I'm doing everything right, and still I'm getting sick. And then people think, forget it. I've done everything right and I'm still sick. Now I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want. Don't do that. Because there are higher levels where these diseases stem from. We'll talk about them in the other class. But this is the important point this evening. Everything can be cured. When we go into the realm of the spiritual and the higher domains and we start to learn how to fix things there, then absolutely everything can be cured. So never give up. That if you're having a difficult time, do your best and create create good habits now. And it will catch up. That the bad that we've done in the past, we can overdo it. And so don't give up. Keep striving to be a better human being. And sometimes we look at our neighbor and that guy eats all the wrong stuff, and yet he's as strong as an ox for an entire incarnation. And I do my best to eat all the right stuff, and maybe I'm not doing so well or whatever. You do your best for what's right for you, and you can't understand everybody else's worlds and what's really going on. And sometimes people look really healthy on the outside, but if you could see into their bloodstream, into their arteries, into their digestive system, they're not that far away from having great difficulties. So keep trying to do your best. Know that everything can be cured. And again, in this conclusion, don't try to make too many changes at once. Just make small little changes, and you'll get there. Remember the story of the Khargosh or Kachua. That means in Hindi, the rabbit or the hare and the tortoise. And who wins that race? Slowly, one step at a time, the tortoise wins the race. If you forget everything I said tonight, it's okay. But just remember, eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. If you want to add one more thing to that, eat less refined sugar and starches. Again, I said I would say it again. I need to say it again. Don't drive your family crazy with this. You might, hopefully, I hope you get all excited about all this new information, and now you finally know how the human body works. You know what right diet is. And as a parent, it is your responsibility to make sure your children are healthy. Don't drive them crazy. Let them eat what they want, more or less. As a parent, you do have a duty to your child, but experiment on yourself, keep things harmonious, don't get fanatical, and make these changes slowly, and don't force anybody else to be healthy if they don't want to be. Let people be what they need to be. Final quote here. Actually, I have a couple quotes, but one of them is that, and this is from Paramhansa Yogananda, a pure heart, oh, you can't see, I think, on the screen right now, but is more important than a pure stomach, me pointing at my stomach. So love everyone, live rightly, and live rightly in regards to all your fellow mankind, love thy neighbor, and that's more important than having a pure stomach. I know I have another quote here that we need to read, and then we'll get to the questions. A couple quotes. So one, Paramhansa Yogananda made a word. He made this word up himself. It is a proper eat-arian, a proper eatarian. It's not a vegetarian. It's not a meat eater, not a non-veg. It's a proper eatarian. And so that's what you need to become, a proper eatarian. And that means eat what is proper for you. Eat what is right for you. I told you that I'd give you something from Swami Kriyananda, who really didn't get much into diet at all. This is from the book, Living Wisely, Living Well. It's in your notes we'll share with you. It simply says, eat a balanced diet. A good formula for doing so is to select foods that are varied in color. The deeper the color, usually the richer their energy. So that's a really easy way. Just make sure, you know, an apple's red, I ate that today. A carrot's orange, I ate that today. And banana, yellow, and good enough. And that works for Swami Kriyananda. So you can think about that one. You can keep it easy. I'll wrap this up with Sri Yukteswar's quote from the autobiography of the yogi. And that simply is, follow any simple diet which proves which proved suited to your constitution. If that diet proves suited to your constitution, follow that. Enough. That'll do. So keep happy, keep joyful. Let's get into the questions here. I'm going to go from the top on the Q&A. If you haven't asked yours yet, there's a little button down at the bottom that says Q&A. You can click it and you can type a question there. Okay, first question. Recently read about the ancient grain millet. Combines both carbohydrate and protein, so causes sugar to be released slowly. If diabetic uses millet, they can be cured of diabetes. Okay, I'm not a doctor. Might work, give it a go, study it. I do know that all grains, they are a mixture of carbohydrates and they will have a little bit of protein in them. Also a very interesting change that India is going through right now, that the British brought in, you know, like rice and wheat. But before that, Indians used to eat all kinds of different wonderful grains. And in India, we're starting to explore all of these different grains again and use them. And it's a wonderful time that's happening. So that's a good point. I can't give too much info on that. Let's see here. Here again, one person's saying a doctor has cured diabetics by putting them on a breakfast of sweet fruits only. And controlling the lunch and their dinner. He says fruit after meal increases blood sugar, but fruits on an empty stomach controls blood sugar. Needs consideration. I agree, needs consideration. I don't know, honestly. I'm sure that eating fruit is more healthy than eating a candy bar like a 5-star. But exactly how the sugar in the fruit's going to do for the diabetics, I can't say. Again, in the class we just had, though, the fruits will burn alkaline, and that's a very good thing. This is important here, this question. Not combining protein and starch is very difficult because milk also combines protein and carbohydrate. Absolutely true. And if you eat an almond, that has protein, it doesn't have starch, but it has protein and carbohydrate. And many things are a mixture of proteins and carbohydrates. Dal has protein and has carbohydrates. I honestly don't worry about this too much. I just eat the dal, let's face it, with some rice, and I just call it good, and it's fine. Where it really gets into it is if you're going to combine, you know, like beef or something with a lot of bread or with a lot of rice. And if you're, you know, going to eat chicken, let's say, it's going to be much healthier if you eat chicken with just a lot of vegetables than whether you eat chicken with a lot of potatoes or something like that. So it is very difficult. Don't go too intellectual on this. You'll drive yourself crazy. Just take the basics and learn and do your best. If protein and starch shouldn't be mixed, does that mean that dal and rice shouldn't be mixed? And you know, I'm considering myself Indian at the moment. We Indians have been living on this for just about ever. I think it's just fine. It's possible. Don't quote me. I don't know. I need to look it up. But often some legumes and starch that they give a combined protein. Perhaps this is, or I'm sorry, a complete protein. Perhaps that's doing that. I'm not sure. I wouldn't worry about that one. That's personal advice from me. Again, you study master's teachings and live them how you will. How about ginger, turmeric, cooking medium? Are we used to cooking in oil with vegetables? I don't understand this question exactly too much, but so we have all the spices, use them, enjoy them, fine. In the spiritual class, I'll talk about the gunas and rajas and sattva and how much spices we might want. But I say, enjoy life. Enjoy the spice. Why not? Is there any fruit juice to be had daily? Have whatever fruit juice suits your constitution. Do we have to eat everything in the amounts mentioned on all days during the 9-day diet? Fascinating question. Let me drop back into the notes there and take a look. The 9-day diet, let's see the amount there. And I already got it in my mind because Master put it in there without having to read this again. So I'm just going to tell you without me having to read the notes. If you read those through after those amounts for the 9-day diet, you will see that Paramhansa Yogananda, he didn't write it because somebody else, he dictated, whatever. They wrote the notes. But he said, modify this as you need. That if you need more milk or whatever, take more milk. If you need less raisins, whatever. That's just there for you to know more or less about, so you get all the 16 elements so that your body stays alkaline and, I don't know, just to make it easy, but don't worry too much about the amounts. That was a very good question. Thank you for that question. Are tomatoes alkaline? I believe they are, from what I have read in those lessons, being a fruit that I believe that they would be. What are the challenges we face on 9-day diet trying it the first time? The challenge is eating all of that citrus fruit. The challenge is all of these toxins are being released, and it will play on your emotions. Nayaswami Jyotish-ji, Devi-ji, they're a married couple. They have a rule. Whenever they're on the 9-day diet, if they say something bad against the other person's not allowed to hold it against them for the rest of the incarnation because it just came out during the 9-day diet. It's a funny little thing. I don't take that too seriously. They're both loving souls and highly evolved, so I doubt they're yelling at each other or anything. It's just them joking. But it will play with your emotions and your moods a little bit. And we're creatures of habit. We're used to having that heavy feeling that comes with eating starches or eating proteins, and suddenly you don't have that. I have a friend who said when he was on the 9-day diet, he felt that he could either feel super uplifted and super spiritual or just super down and depressed, and that there was no middle ground, that he just had to super watch himself because he didn't have the heavier foods that kind of act as a buffer like that. Also, it's nice to do with someone who's done it. There's just can be a lot of confusion on whether you eat the lemon, you don't eat the lemon. Are we talking American-sized lemons or Indian-sized lemons? And why does my 9-day diet beverage look different than that guy's? And so it's nice for us to do it as a group. But how to cope with it, the most thing is you set your will. I'm just going to finish this thing. It's said that it's a good thing, and you do it. Or some people choose to just do for 3 days to try it out so that they know they'll finish that, and that could happen. Let's go on to the next question. I have lots of tea, but without sugar, and green tea too. Okay, yogis are said not to take tea. Swami Kriyananda drank coffee all the time. be happy. Yes, if you have it without sugar, I think that's a great thing. Some diets recommend having 2 glasses of warm water on an empty stomach before brushing our teeth. Is that good? I'm just an honest human being. I have no idea if that's good. I would have to try it. I have absolutely no idea. Perhaps it is. Next question, can you share the correlation of food we eat to our spiritual journey? Please write to the organizers from Kolkata, and if you want me to give that spiritual class and food and how those go together, I'll make it all about that. And there's a lot to learn in that, and I look forward to it if you want it. Can you suggest a diet for a diabetic person? Eat less? Yes, I can, and this is just general knowledge. Everybody knows this. But obviously, don't eat refined sugars, eat less sugar, eat less carbohydrates, and then eat more vegetables for sure. The fruits thing, probably you want to look that up with your doctor and see what they have to say. And that's the best that I can do on that. I've met many diabetic people who have had high blood sugar numbers, but with right diet and with willpower, they have really reversed it. So there's always hope, and know that the human body, that if we give it what it needs and we let it function in the way that it's supposed to, that it really can rejuvenate itself. Master met a man who would drink a lot of carrot juice, and he had lost all of his hair, and that man grew all of his hair back by having a right diet, and he would drive around America giving lectures on good health and how to get that with proper diet. So just know that it can be done and keep trying to do your best. Next question, many have advocated turmeric, which wasn't mentioned in today's discourse. True, from what I know, and this is just word of mouth, that turmeric's good for us and that it has all kinds of healthy things. However, I tried to really just keep this as to what did Paramhansa Yogananda say, so it's not too much. I don't want any Jemal opinion here. I want to give you what Paramhansa Yogananda said. You study it, you understand it in your own way. You also asked here about tamasic food. I'll go into the gunas when we do part 2 on this in the spiritual thing. Because I could spend a half hour on that right now, which we only have 3 minutes left. So, Ayurveda advises against combining fruit with dairy. Yeah, I can see that. Swami Kriyananda says the same thing in the Art and Science of Raja Yoga book, that he says cream, which is just the fat of the milk, combines much better with fruits than milk itself and fruits. Okay, in these lessons I gave you, Paramhansa Yogananda said, I think it was in the dues, or it's in there somewhere, that fruit and milk is a good thing. Try it out, do what works for you. I don't know exactly, and I don't know. I think more important is how important do you want to make that in your daily life versus all of the rest of these rules. I think that's the real question, but you're going to have to solve that one. Next question, is fasting suitable for the elderly? I honestly don't know. That perhaps if someone is not able to, that goes into I feel that's something that a doctor should answer. I would ask a doctor before you started fasting if they thought that it would be okay for you, especially if you're having to do more work right now around the house or whatever. How to start fasting is the next question. Start slowly and just do a little bit. Set your will to something little. Perhaps if you're used to eating 3 big meals a day, take 1 meal and only eat fruit for that meal. Then maybe you do 2 meals a day that are fruit. Maybe then you get to 3 meals a day that are fruit. Anyway, you can figure that out slowly. You can read these notes again also on fasting and figure that out. How will eating sprouts work? I don't know. I know that it's mentioned in the Raja Yoga book and that it's supposed to be very, very healthy and packed with life force, and that they're supposed to be very good for you. I've never really gotten into that, so I just don't know. Okay. Is it okay to mix fruits and veggies together in a meal? As far as I understand, it is okay to do that. The less mixing we do, the easier it is for our digestive system to handle it all. But I think mixing fruits and veggies is fine. Again, personal opinion. Did Master mention anything specific on including natural fibers in our diet? He did. He would call it getting enough bulk in your diet so that the digestive system can move everything along and move it through. And as we start, experimenting with just eating some light fruit or something, that the stomach also, it needs bulk in order to get and be able to move things through. And so he suggested certain things. I'd have to reread those lessons to remember what those things were. They might be something like pears or apples or certain fruits that have enough fiber in it that will help be able to provide enough bulk. So he did talk about that in a certain way. How to put on weight is the final question I'm going to take here, then we're going to end. And I will tell you what is in those Precepta lessons. Master said, eat bananas, eat whole wheat bread with a lot of butter and with a lot of cream. And so you can eat foods that have more fat. Bananas are an interesting thing because they have a lot of sugar, but it's going to be in a form that's going to help the body still stay more alkaline. And so those two things, and then the whole wheat bread, that also would help put on weight. So I can tell you that. He said that. He also said much more about it. It is in those Precepta lessons. And so we can do it. We can put on weight if we need to. We can take it off, and we can be happy. And so I'm going to end on that note, that let's just stay happy here and make sure that you have fun as you go through this and as you make these little changes. And I've had a great evening with all of you. And I look forward to the next time that we get to be together and that we get to share the teachings of the great ones together. So may God bless you all, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.